Hey everyone. If you're like us, you want to get smart about interesting topics, really understand them, but without spending days wading through info.
That's the idea.
And today we're doing a deep dive into Portuguese electronic music, specifically focusing on a really influential act. Cult of Krameria, or KK.
Yeah, KK. A fascinating case. We've got some great material here detailing their history, their sound, their impact.
Exactly. So our mission today, let's really pull out the key stuff, the most important bits about Cult of Krameria and what role they played in that whole Portuguese electronic scene.
Definitely. And it's more than just tunes. It's about understanding a cultural moment in Portugal. The story really centers around two key albums.
Okay.
First off, Tomology back in 1997, and then quite a bit later, they came back strong with Return in 2012.
Right, Tomology 97. The name kind of suggests like
As
a
a,
study of their sound. Yeah.
yeah,
The info says it was a collection of the earlier tracks.
it was, but it was more than just a compilation. Think of it as them planting their flag,
Yeah.
defining their sound. It pulled together those early pieces that really showed off their unique thing, that blend of techno, but with this like percussive, almost folk energy from Portugal.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't just random tracks, it was a statement.
Exactly. It really set them apart at the time, kind of pointed a new way forward for electronic music there.
And then fast forward quite a bit, 2012, Rake Dot Turn.
Mhm.
The title's pretty clear, a comeback. What was the vibe around that album?
Well, it wasn't just like a nostalgia trip. It really hit the dance floors hard with new, powerful tracks.
So still relevant.
Totally. It showed they weren't just a 90s memory. They could still make music that worked now,
Right.
but still had that KK edge. It proved they were still very much alive creatively.
This is where I find it gets really interesting. The material stresses how fundamental they were to Portuguese electronic culture, especially in that whole 90s rave and underground scene. Sounds like they were doing more than just playing records.
Oh, absolutely. They were right in the thick of it, when that whole scene was exploding. They weren't just part of it. They were actively helping define what Portuguese electronic music sounded and felt like in those really formative years.
Building the soundscape, essentially.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
For a whole generation.
And we've got some track names here. Love and Happiness, The Voodoo Drums, Esperanza, Pure Reality. These weren't just hits, were they? What was special about these specific ones?
Those are like perfect examples of their signature sound, what material calls dark tribal grooves.
Dark Turtle Grooves. Okay.
Yeah, imagine this, like driving techno beat, but then woven through with these complex, really rhythmic, almost ancient-sounding percussion patterns. And often with these darker atmospheric synth layers or samples on top, they had this hypnotic thing going on. They could really command a dance floor. DJs love them for building that intense rhythmic vibe.
So they weren't just being enjoyed passively. It sounds like KK actively shaped the tastes within that Portuguese underground. How big was that influence, do you think?
It was pretty substantial,
Yeah.
especially for the DJs and producers who came up after that first 90s rave wave.
Right.
KK gave them a blueprint, almost. Showed them how you could create this really powerful electronic sound that still felt unique, that had a distinct cultural flavor. They broadened the possibilities.
The source material even uses the phrase more than just a band, calls them a true cultural force. That's a big claim. What elevates them to that level?
I think it goes back to them defining that era. They weren't just providing the tunes for the party. Their music became part of the identity of that underground culture.
Ah, okay.
It resonated really deeply, offered a soundtrack, but also like a sense of belonging for people in that scene.
Let's talk about the live shows. The notes mention some really cool locations. The Castle of Montemoro Velho, Tecnolandia, Locomia down in the Algarve. Sounds pretty epic.
Yeah, those places are legendary in Portuguese rave history. And KK was right there, synonymous with these massive immersive parties.
That castle one especially sounds amazing.
Totally. Imagine that historical setting with their music. And their farewell gig, mentioned at El Cantamar Club, that's remembered as a really big night too. A significant moment.
But it wasn't a final farewell, as we know. Still, things did go quiet for a while. The info touches on why they went on standby. It wasn't just artistic choice, right? External stuff played a part.
Yeah, it seems like it. A few things came together. The Portuguese market itself is, well, relatively small, and maybe lacked a fully developed club circuit back then for electronic acts to consistently tour and build careers.
Practicality.
Practicalities, exactly. And maybe also a feeling that electronic music, or maybe their specific style, wasn't getting the same kind of mainstream attention or respect in the wider European scene, which limited their visibility, their chances for regular gigs.
So not a lack of passion, just the environment making it tough to keep going full tilt.
That seems to be the picture, yeah.
But thankfully, there's that positive note. The flame is still burning. That must mean a lot to the fans.
Oh, absolutely. It suggests it was never meant as a full stop. The door was always kind of open for them to come back with new stuff, new shows, when the time felt right. There's this sense of unfinished business, maybe.
And it's clear people still really cherish those dark tribal grooves. It's not just looking back fondly, is it? There's real appreciation there.
Definitely. That sound was so distinctive, so powerful. It really bonded them with that community. A unique artistic voice like that tends to stick around, creates a real legacy.
We talked about the tracks, but the info really hammers home how crucial the live shows were to their impact. It wasn't just about hearing the music on a record.
No, not at all. The live thing was absolutely central. That energy they created in the room, that connection with the crowd, that's where the real KK magic happened. It was a shared thing, you know?
Right, a collective experience.
Exactly. That's what cemented their place in people's memories.
And this anticipation for them maybe coming back. It feels like fans aren't just wishing, they genuinely expect KK could bring something important back to the scene today.
Yeah, there's a feeling their sound hasn't really aged out. And maybe with a renewed interest in deeper, more authentic electronic sounds, the conditions could be right for them again.
The info also gives us the actual names. Luis Miguel Abreu as Miguel Krameria and Miguel Angelo dos Santos as Miguel Bumbax. Good to put names to the pseudonyms.
Always interesting, yeah.
And the expectations from those fans who were there the first time around, they seem sky high, wanting to recapture that ecstasy, emotion, delirium, and escapism.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those words really capture it, don't they? That's the intensity people remember. They want that feeling back, that sense of being totally lost in the music together.
And it's suggested their stuff is almost required listening for newer generations. Why is that? What do they offer that maybe newer stuff doesn't?
Well, it's a direct line back to a really important time in Portuguese electronic history.
A touchstone.
Exactly. If you're looking for something authentic, something with real stylistic depth from that era, KK is essential. It's a window into where things came from.
The material keeps circling back to this idea of them creating their own atmosphere, their own vibe on the dance floor. How did they pull that off?
It was that potent mix, wasn't it? Their signature sound, those dark tribal grooves, plus this knack for reading the crowd, feeding off the energy and amplifying it.
Mm-hmm.
They were basically conducting the dance floor, taking people on this intense flowing journey.
And that blend. Tribal rhythms, tech house, techno, progressive. It sounds like that fusion was the key. They weren't just one thing.
Not at all. They blended it all seamlessly. Those tribal elements fused with different electronic styles. That's what made it immersive, unique. You heard it. You knew it was Kult of Krameria.
So that unique style and the tracks and the live shows, that's the core of their legacy. It wasn't just music. It was the whole experience, almost a lifestyle for the people involved.
Precisely. Their parties weren't just gigs. They were cultural moments. They built a community around that specific sound and feeling.
And the hope, it seems, is that if they do return properly, they could connect with new listeners in that same deep way. Offer something more than just disposable beats.
Yeah, the potential's there. To show a new generation that a party can be about expression, about escape, about real connection through the music, a deeper meaning.
The notes end with this real sense of hope, this idea they might come back with secret weapons for the dance floor, ignite that magic again. There's definitely still a lot of level of nostalgia for that sound.
You can feel it. The nostalgia is strong, and it tells you just how much their music and those legendary shows meant to people. The memories are potent, and the hope for new ones is definitely still alive in the Portuguese scene.
Okay, so wrapping this up. Our deep dive into Kult of Krameria shows us they were way more than just another electronic act. They were a truly significant force, massively influential in Portuguese electronic music, especially shaping that underground scene in the 90s. Those dark tribal grooves, the unforgettable live shows, that's their lasting legacy, still resonating today.
Absolutely. And thinking about their story kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? It's a great prompt for anyone listening. Think about your own local music scene. How do those often underground, maybe niche sounds end up shaping a cultural identity for a place, for a generation? Maybe digging into Kult of Krameria inspires you to explore the electronic history where you are.